Well, folks, I have to come before you today. Normally here on Student of the Gun Radio, and welcome. This is your host, Paul Markle. Welcome. Normally we have a good time here. We talk about vagination, we talk about sandwiches, and we talk about just some of the most silly, ridiculous things in gun-related news that you've ever heard. But today I have to come before you not so much with a heavy heart, but with a very, very concerned heart. I never thought in my lifetime, when I was 20 years old, when I was serving in the United States Marine Corps, even when I was in high school, during the Cold War, I never, if you'd have told me at one point in time, if you'd have told me when I was 18, 19, 20, even 25 years old, that the President of the United States would be the enemy of the United States, I would have thought you were crazy. And a lot of your friends and neighbors probably still think that. If you would have told me that the people of the United States, in order to preserve their republic, in order to preserve a representative republic, are actually going to have to fight against the elected officials in Washington, D.C., I would have thought you were crazy. If you'd have told me that the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America would deliberately put us at risk, put the nation at risk, knowingly put the nation at risk, I would have said you're a conspiracy theorist and you needed to take off your tinfoil hat. But right now, in the year 2014, as I come before you humbly on this microphone, I have to say that we are there. We're in the twilight zone. We are at a position where our nation, who would have thought in 2002, 2003, when we actually started the war on terrorism, who would have thought that we would actually be in a more precarious position and that the Islamic terrorists worldwide would be stronger in 2014 than they were in 02, 03, 04. How did that happen? Well, according to National Review Online, and we've got multiple sources on this, but National Review Online, and this is dated August 29th, 2014, Judicial Watch, Fed's bulletins describe threat of imminent terrorist attacks on southern border. And then we have the additional story. We have the judicialwatch.com story here, and it says imminent terrorist attack warning update. Fort Bliss increases security. And this story was actually updated on 8/31/2014. And it says Islamic terrorist groups are operating in the Mexico border city of Ciudad Juarez and planning to attack the United States with car bombs and other vehicle-borne improvised explosives. High-level federal law enforcement intelligence and other sources have confirmed to Judicial Watch that a warning bulletin for all of the imminent terrorist attacks mentioned below on the border has been issued. Agents across a number of Homeland Security, Justice, and Defense agencies have all been placed on alert and instructed to aggressively work on all possible leads. Now, hang on a second. So what you're telling me, and this has been sourced multiple times, and you can say, "Oh, that's not true, Paul," or "I'm going to go put my head in the sand," or "I'm more involved in. I need to worry about my fantasy football team. I can't worry about stuff like that." Or that's just the anti-Obama conspiracy theorists. I'm sure if you brought this up at work, some of you, that you still have your Kool-Aid drinkers who would tell you, "Oh, that's just the anti-Obama conspiracy people trying to. It's not as bad as they say it." Well, folks, even if let's just take the El Paso, Texas thing out. Let's take the Ciudad Juarez, Mexico thing out of the equation. What do we absolutely know as a fact right now? We know as a fact that our last 5 to 6 years of foreign policy, our last 5 to 6 years of policy in ostensibly fighting against Islamic jihadist terrorism globally is a failure. We knew it was going to be a failure. I knew it was going to be a failure. I spent 07, 08, 09, and through 2010 I was very actively involved in the training of military personnel prior to deploying overseas. And what I saw, the shift that I saw from 2007 to 2010 was very dramatic. We went from teaching our, soldiers, Marines, airmen, sailors, what have you. We went from teaching them to deliberately locate, close with, and destroy the enemy to becoming involved in this quagmire type peace action or police action. I had guys and a lot of friends, a lot of acquaintances that came back from Iraq, that came back from Afghanistan, and told me about the new rules of engagement, how the rules of engagement were continuously changing and they were continuously being modified to hinder and hamper the activities of U.S. military personnel. Now you're like, if you're not a military guy or girl, you're not really hip on what ROE is, or rules of engagement. Way back during the Geneva Convention and the Hague Accords, and even before that, all civilized nations of the world have basically come up with rules of land warfare, that even when, they have wars amongst each other, that they will follow certain rules. And both the Geneva Convention and the Hague Accords had signatories. Now, in order for the Geneva Convention to protect you as a country or protect your troops as captured POWs or whatever, you actually have to be a signatory to that. And people who are like, these terrorist apologists, they're like, we can't treat them like this and we can't treat them like that, and they have to have trials and they have to have this and blah, 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 blah. Hey, moron. They never signed, Al-Qaeda never sat down and signed the Geneva Convention. They are not a state. They are not an organized government. They are not representative of a specific country. They are rogue terrorists. They are wild, rabid dogs, and they need to be treated as such. You don't find or encounter a rabid dog and sit down and have a conversation with it and talk about why it feels the need to bite you and have rabies and so forth. What do you do to a rabid dog? You put it down and you move on with your life. But instead of putting down these rabid dogs, what we've forced our troops to do is we've forced our troops to second guess themselves. We've forced our troops to not engage enemy targets when they see them and when they know that they're there. And you're like, what? What do you mean not engage? Yes, what I'm telling you right now, for the last several years in Afghanistan, that U.S. military personnel would find and locate enemy personnel. They're like, hey, that's a bad dude. He's in this village, in that house. We know he's there. Oh, you can't go get him. You can't go kill him. Well, why not? Because you have to get permission from the Karzai government. And you have to go through 31 different levels. And when I say 31, I'm not even joking. I talked to, off the record, and I can't mention their names because they're still active duty, but Special Forces operators who told me, they're like, dude, we can find a high-level threat, a bad guy, a target. We'll know where he's at. We'll know what building he's in. But before we can take him down, we have to request permission and go up the chain of command to get him. And the chain of command includes indigenous personnel. It includes Afghani personnel. And not just the president, but several levels in the... She said, so what generally happens is we find a bad guy. We know we got a terrorist leader, somebody who's worth going after. We put in the request, and by the time it gets approved, that person has been tipped off and they're gone. And I have another good friend of mine who I've talked about, and he's been back and forth to Afghanistan about, 8-9 times, Jared, something like that. You know what I'm talking about. And he said, he told me years ago, he said, conventional forces in Afghanistan today, and this was actually back in 2012, he said, have no business being there. He said they're just rolling around the country waiting for IEDs to go off, waiting to be sniped, waiting to be mortared, what have you. He said the only way we're going to finish that up is to go 100% special operations and do what we need to do. But they don't want to do that. And you have to ask yourself, as a citizen of the United States of America, we know there is no doubt in anyone's mind, even, the far left lunatics, there is no doubt that there are evil people, evil creatures running wild in this world. And the only reason that they're not killing you and your family right now as you hear my voice? Listen to me. The only reason that you and your family are not being herded together, shot in a ditch, beheaded, blown up, the only reason that's not happening right now, it's not because they like you. It's not because they have mercy. It's not because they think it's the wrong thing to do. It's not because they have a greater strategy and it doesn't involve killing you. No. The only reason that that's not happening is because these monsters are not in a position to see you. They're not in a position where they can actually lay eyes on you and your family. And if this doesn't hit home to you, if you think, oh, come on, Paul, it's never going to happen here in America. It's already, what are you talking about? It's never going to happen here in America. It's already happened and it's happening. What are you talking about? And why do you think the United States of America should be any different than every other country in the world? I'm telling you. Go ahead, Jared.
Did you hear or did you see the thing on the Blaze where they put up what George Bush said in 2007 about if we pulled out of Iraq or if we didn't win the war like we needed to?
No, what was that?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the audio and I'll play it because it's literally it predicted what is happening right now.
You know, people, all the reasonable people are like, well, the battles are over and we need to get out. We need to get out as soon as possible. You know why they think that, and you know why you may have thought that? Because you didn't study history. How long did the United States of America maintain a military presence in Japan after the signing of the surrender, the unconditional surrender? Decades. How many of you know that Douglas MacArthur was basically, there's a movie called, I believe it's called Emperor, but Douglas MacArthur was appointed as basically the supreme commander of Japan after World War II. You guys know that, right? How about Germany? How long? World War II has been over since 1945. We still have troops in Germany today. We still have troops in Okinawa, Japan, although we're not occupying the country right now. Basically, people, all these hippie, I mean, it's a shame. There's hippies everywhere in the world, but you get these, even when I was in the Marine Corps way back in the 80s and 90s, you had these nationalist protesters. They wanted Americans gone. They wanted them out of their country, blah, 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 in Okinawa. And then we had to close our bases and we had to leave. And the U.S. government's like, no, that's not going to happen. And the Japanese government is all like, no, that's not going to happen either, because the fact is the greatest protection force, Japan has what they call basically a national protection force, like a National Guard. They have an army and a navy and what have you, but they're very, very small comparatively. And we are the big brother for Japan. If Japan were to be attacked by Korea or by China, it's the United States of America that would be defending the island nations of Japan. So that's why we're there. But folks, this whole, we need to get out as quick as possible. So what happens? We have a community organizer who looks good in a suit and speaks well off of a teleprompter comes along, and your friends and your neighbors who are morons think, wouldn't it be wonderful and wouldn't it be grand and wouldn't it be a wonderful thing in American history if we could elect a half-black president? So they do. And they feel all good and wonderful and warm about themselves because we're in an MTV generation where there is no substance. It's all how you look. And even though we have an untried person, a person who never has held a position of authority, who's never run a business, who's never governed a state, who's never been the mayor of a large metropolitan area, a community organizer who, as a senator, voted present more often than he voted yes or no on anything, basically a middle-of-the-road guy. And don't think that was an accident. All that voting present crap was a setup so that when it came time to run for president, that he wouldn't have to basically be accountable for anything. So we have someone who's completely inexperienced, completely unaccountable for any actions that they take. But because they look good in a suit and they can really read well off a teleprompter, And they don't look like they came from the hood because they're half white. Ooh, did I just say that? It's true. Look it up. So all of your moron friends, and of course all your slavish neighbors, your tax slaves and so forth, all the comfortable slaves, they run out and cast their vote for the community organizer. And immediately all the leftists get into power in Washington. And what happens to our national defense policy? Essentially, we just punt. Essentially, we just, well, whatever. It'll take care of itself. We can't be mean to our enemies because that might hurt their feelings. We're going to decimate the U.S. military from the inside out so that all the really hardcore motivated guys in the military will say, I've had enough of this crap, and they'll get out. And all you have left is a bunch of pensioners. And if you have friends and neighbors in the military, rock on. But let me tell you what I've seen from the inside, actually being deeply involved in the military, is that all the really motivated guys, the hardcore guys, they force these dudes to sit down and do sexual orientation sensitivity training. Brothers and sisters, the military is not some kind of grand social experiment. There is one reason and one reason only for a military. That is to have a force that is strong enough to literally kill and destroy anyone or anything that threatens the nation. That's the purpose of the military. Not to hand out pillows, not to give them free meals, not to go overseas and police them and make sure that they're behaving correctly. No. The purpose of a Navy, an Air Force, a Marine Corps, an Army is that if anyone, any country, any entity threatens the homeland, threatens the United States of America, that we are powerful enough and strong enough to find them, destroy them, and kill them so they don't want to threaten us anymore. It's very, very simple. And how we get in trouble is we decide we're going to use the military to exercise our foreign policy or what have you. And every time we do that, it's a disaster. Jared, did you read Sun Tzu's Art of War?
Yeah.
And in The Art of War, those of you who read it for a military or political reference tool, not how can I succeed in business, but in The Art of War, Sun Tzu gives out several warnings or admonishments. And you read that book, and it was written how long ago, Jared?
It was a long time
ago. Long time ago. I'm thinking greater than 5 centuries. Let's just say 5 centuries ago. But the warnings that were put out in that book, the admonishment, hey, don't do this because if you do. For instance, one of them is about a protracted conflict. Is it avoid at all costs protracted conflicts because they drain the energy of the people and the gold from the nation's coffers? Gee, really? Things like the purpose of warfare is to destroy the enemy, and any way to do that, or any way, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but we seem to have forgotten that. How did Sun Tzu figure that out? And I don't need a history lesson on Sun Tzu. I understand how it was written and why it was written. But how is it that this advice has been around for 500 years and we can't seem to follow it? I don't know. Musashi's The Five Rings. How is it that our military leaders can't understand advice that was offered up 500 years ago? We're making the same mistakes over and over again.
It's because the re-education of the military leaders, the people that they're putting in power in the military to make decisions, or just in general in life, the people that they're putting in office or in charge of things are not people that are decision makers.
They're not leaders. That every decision has to now. Whereas in the military, it used to be, back in the olden times, military decisions were made based upon victory, or how can we achieve victory? What is the quickest way to achieve victory? Or how can I minimize my losses? Now they're made upon, well, will this hurt anyone's feelings? Is this politically correct? Will it jeopardize my career if something goes wrong? And this actually goes all the way back to the 80s and beyond, where you have officers that are putting sentries out on post or sending people out on patrol with no ammunition for their rifles. You're like, what? Come on, Paul. Folks, the 1983 Marine Corps barracks bombing in Beirut, where all those Marines died. The reason they did that is because the sentries had unloaded guns. They were able to drive up there. What? Yeah. Why is that? Well, because the officer of the day, the officer in charge who makes that decision to not allow the sentries to have ammunition, is more worried about their career. They're more worried about the private or the PFC having a negligent discharge than they have to deal with it, than they are with the private or the PFC getting killed. Yes. And so they make decisions like that. Well, that's a small thing. No, those kind of decisions go up. So you've got a lieutenant who's making the decision not to arm his sentries or to not allow them to load their guns because he's worried about them having a negligent discharge, not about getting killed. That guy eventually becomes a captain, becomes a colonel, eventually possibly becomes a general. But they take those same decision-making that same reasoning with them. You got to protect my career. We've talked about this before. But to the imminent threat to the United States of America, what I'm going to ask you is, and ask yourself this, ask your family members this, when are we going to hold those who have sworn an oath, whether they meant it or not, it doesn't matter, who swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and the people of the United States of America? You know that is the ultimate job of the Commander-in-Chief, is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, of the people of the United States of America, of the country of the United States of America. Your senators, your congressmen, your commander-in-chief all swore an oath to protect you. That is their job above all other things. If they do nothing else, it is their job to keep this nation safe from foreign aggression. How are we doing so far? What's the score on that card? Oh, let me see. Johnny Jihad decides he's going to run around Fort Hood and murder people. And what is the reaction of your dear leaders? Oh, that's not terrorism. It's he's running around screaming "Aloha Snack Bar," killing U.S. military servicemen. And the reaction of your dear leader is, that's workplace violence. That's a joke. It's laughable. How stupid are you? How stupid am I? How stupid are the American people that these jokers in Washington think that they can look at you and say, workplace violence? Really? Really? Is that what that is? Then we have the Boston bombing. Okay, and that whole thing stinks to high heaven. But here's what we know. The two jokers that have been charged with that situation, that they both had strong ties to Islamic terrorists, and that our State Department knew about it, that our CIA knew about it, that they were aware of that. But do you think they kept them out of our country? No, because that might hurt someone's feelings. And if you want to hurt your feelings, you want your feelings to be hurt? Did you know those turds were getting tax dollars, your tax money, to live in the country? Oh, wow. Okay. How about Dearbornistan? And I'm going to call this out. Up there in Michigan, there is a hive of jihadism. There is a hive, and it's called Dearborn. And folks, what did we just find? Jared, did you just hear on the news about the 22 Islamic descendants, up here on student visas or what have you, who traveled from Dearborn down to Houston to take maritime training, and the FBI the Homeland Security, and they put them on alert because they said that that was not the closest place to take it. They could have taken it anywhere else because they're very, very concerned about the Texas border right now and what may be happening on the coast of Texas in Mexico. And they're all from Dearborn. Folks, Get your collective heads out of your collective rear ends. And I'm going to leave you with this, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. But when this happens, it's not an if. It's not an if. The if is over with. When we are attacked, number one, and first of all, we're going to be attacked, and the first thing, I'm going to make a prediction. Jared, can I make a prediction? Jared says, okay. He's nodding at me through the glass. He said, when this happens, the first thing that is going to happen is your dear leader and his sycophants are going to rush to the microphones and tell you not to be too quick to judge, that we don't know. This may be an isolated incident. Every time we're hit, every time Americans are murdered by jihadists, by Haji Bob, every time that happens, what do? Oh, this is an isolated incident. This is an isolated incident. How many dozens or hundreds of isolated incidents do we have to have before we wake up and say, no, it's not an isolated incident? Now, here's the big question. When this happens, will your neighbors, will your relatives, will your coworkers, will all these middle-of-the-road people, and maybe even you, will you look to those responsible for the protection of this nation who have failed us over and we can't even protect our own ambassadors? How did we become a nation where we can't even protect our own ambassadors? Do you understand that? Those of you who are of age like myself, who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old maybe, would you have ever fathomed in the 80s an American ambassador being pulled out of the consulate and murdered in the streets, and we sit helpless and do nothing about it? Yeah, we can fathom that. You know when that happened? Well, it happened in Tehran when, Mr. Peanut Farmer, Jimmy Carter, allowed the Iranian students, no, they weren't Iranian students, they were Islamic terrorists, to capture our embassy and embarrass us for 444 days. But at least they didn't take them out in the streets and murder them. They didn't have that kind of chutzpah back then. But they have it today. And why do you suppose they have it today? Why do you suppose they're not afraid to murder our ambassadors? Do you think maybe it's because they know that there are going to be no repercussions? Maybe the repercussions is that Barry won't send them quite as many AKs and M16s as he did prior. When we get hit again, and we're going to, will you hold those who are sworn by oath to protect this country? Will they be held accountable, or will they be allowed to skate yet again? I don't know. You tell me.
I'm gonna finish off this topic with audio that I said I'd play earlier. So let me go ahead and cue that up.
I know some in Washington would like us to start leaving Iraq now. But to begin withdrawing before our commanders tell us we're ready would be dangerous for Iraq, for the region, and for the United States. It would mean surrendering the future of Iraq to al-Qaeda. It mean that we'd be risking mass killings on a horrific scale. It would mean we allow the terrorists to establish a safe haven in Iraq to replace the one they lost in Afghanistan. It would mean increasing the probability that American troops would have to return at some later date to confront an enemy that is even more dangerous.
All right, folks. Like them or dislike them, that is exactly what's happening right now. And we're going to move on to the next subject. What are we looking at here, Dad?
Well, we're looking at let's go ahead and thank our sponsors. We haven't done that yet. So number one, we want to thank our sponsors, Brownells.com. Go to Brownells.com and you can shop around. If you use the Student of the Gun exclusive promo code GTF, Golf Tango Foxtrot, you will get a $10 gift card with orders $50 or more. So check that out. And you've got until the end of September to do that. Now, SWAT Fuel, we've been using the SWAT Fuel here because Jared and I have been working out quite a bit in our new House of Pain gym. And speaking of the House of Pain, if you guys you want to make sure you're checking out Student of the Gun TV this week, as you hear this, it's going to be up, and we give you an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at Student of the Gun University and Think On production facility. So you want to make sure that you're tuning in to check that out, because you will be right now you're the first ones to hear about it. So congratulations. But SWAT Fuel has a special Student of the Gun promo code, and it is SOTG 2014, Student of the Gun 2014, SOTG. And when you put that in, when you sign out or you get online, get on SWATfuel.com, make your order, put in the special promo code SOTG 2014, and you're going to get 20% off of your total order. That's pretty righteous. That's a reason to get on there and check it out. And don't forget about Colt, the makers of the LE901 rifle at Colt.com. And of course, now before we get into the XS Sights Good Guy of the Week, I got a show note here that I need to deal with or to talk about. And this is something a little bit new. But Jared and I, we get frequent questions, don't we, Jared? Via Facebook or
everything.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, Facebook and Twitters and emails and all that jazz, private messages and public messages. And often they're general topic stuff. They're general topic stuff about firearms, or they're general topic stuff about, safety or tactics or what have you. But occasionally we get an email addressed to us in the info at box that is a personal question, such as, personal feelings about X or Y or what have you. Jared obviously shared his story about Lenny, sweating with Lenny and the orange and so forth. And now I've been accused, haven't I, Jared, of talking about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some people who suffer from the ailment of vagination out there who have complained that your host, the person who actually hosts the show, actually talked about himself. I know that's crazy talk, and you would never expect that. But what we've decided to do, based upon all this information that I just shared with you guys, is during the third hour, during the subscriber hour, we know that if you're there during the third hour, that if you're a subscriber, that you actually are a dedicated student of the gun, that you are actually interested in hearing what we have to say and diving in a little bit deeper. So what we're going to do for you guys, and Jared, tell them what you've done for them so they can submit personal questions.
I created a new forum topic at forums, forums.studentofthegun.com. You can go there, and I titled it "Get to Know Paul and Jared on a Personal Level." So you click on that, and then you can ask any question that you want in that thread.
Yeah, and also don't forget, Jared, they can access the forums via what?
Yeah, you can go to the mobile app, and you can access the forum now. I put a little tab on there for you to make it easy.
Yeah, so if you don't have the mobile app for your Android phone or your iPhone or your iPad or what have you, just take a moment and download it, get it on there. That way it's always there, and you can access the forums and, of course, the radio show and all the other stuff that we do from the mobile app. And it's free, thanks to Century Arms. But if you want to ask a question, we're going to do it kind of very similarly to what we do with the XS Sights Good Guy of the Week, where Jared and I will pick a question from the forum, and then we'll answer that question during the third hour. We don't want to offend some of the weak-willed people by talking about ourselves during our own radio show. I guess apparently you're not allowed to do that, Jared. He's just making a face over there. He's shaking his head like he can't believe it. But he can't believe that someone would actually write in to complain that the host of a show would talk about themselves during their own show. But, all right. So if you guys, and keep it clean, but anything you want. It's your forum. Ask anything you want. Boxers or briefs, tattoos, whatever. Ask away. And we can't guarantee you that we're going to answer every question, but we are going to answer at least one every single week during the third hour, during the subscriber hour.
And we know that everybody likes to have a little bit of fun and comedy in their day to get past the horrific reality that's happening right now. So that's what we're going to do for you guys.
And let's face it, some of the answers to some of the questions will probably not be family-friendly rated.
Yeah.
I'm just anticipating that. But right now, let's jump into our Excess Good Guy of the Week, sponsored by our friends Excess Sights, the fastest sights in any light. Jared, who's our good guy this week, and what's the question?
Our good guy this week is Nelson Cycles from the forum. And he says, last week we had a good gal. Did I tell that?
A good girl. We had a good girl last week. So congratulations, good girl.
Congratulations. And this week is Nelson Cycles, and he says, I keep my Glock loaded all the time, but I dry fire most evenings, and I am concerned about shrinking cartridge length and excessive loading and unloading of the handgun. Is there a better solution / alternative to that practice?
Yes, absolutely there is, and that's an excellent question, and it's an excellent observation. And here's the deal with ammunition, folks, whether it's rifle ammunition, shotgun ammunition, or pistol ammunition, and Jared's going to tell you what you need to do to get your stuff.
Nelson Cycles, I need you to email me your address, shirt size, and your phone number to Jared, that's Jarrad, at studentofthegun.com.
Bam, there's your marching orders. Okay, this is a situation that Ken Hackathorn, if you guys know Ken Hackathorn, and if you're dedicated students, you probably do. If you're not, go ahead and duck Ken Hackathorn. Ken's one of the preeminent firearms instructors in the United States of America, and he has been for about 30-plus years now.
He's got a Wilson Custom 1911 made after him.
That's right. That's right. So, and Ken's a friend of ours, and he used to write a monthly column or regular column for American Handgunner magazine. And I remember reading this way back. It was in the 90s. But Ken addressed this situation specifically, not just for dry firing, but for police officers who had to, for whatever reason, they had to continuously load and unload their handguns. And the fact of the matter is, whether it's a rifle cartridge or a pistol cartridge, what you've got every time you load that thing, shotgun's not so much, but you can wear it out too because it's plastic. But you're rubbing that cartridge against the chamber. There's some pressure that's going into it, and what will happen? And Ken he actually he addressed the situation of first shot malfunctions. And what he found was that there were a lot of agencies where officers were having first shot malfunctions. And they're like, what in the world is going on with these guns that these guys are having? They get one shot off and the gun malfunctions, or you have a stoppage. And what they found is these guys, whether it was SIGs or Glocks or Smith & Wessons or whatever, they would come home, take their guns, unload them, pull the cartridge out of the chamber, stuff it back on top of the magazine, and then when they went back on duty, they'd rechamber that round, and they'd do it over and over and over again. And what was happening is every time they do that, the bullet, the projectile, would get pushed a little farther, a little farther, a little farther, a little farther back into the case, and it creates two things. It creates an overpressure situation, a possible danger of overpressure, and it also can bulge the case wall where it shouldn't be bulged. And what you have is a case cartridge situation that when it fires, the primer's still good. The firing pin whacks the primer, it goes boom. But instead of cycling like it should, you end up with a stoppage. Often you end up with a failure to extract or eject, or a failure to feed or double feed, what have you. And that's not how you want to start a gunfight. Generally, you don't want to start a gunfight with one shot and a stoppage. So what Ken suggested is that you take an extra magazine, a spare magazine, and call that your loading magazine. He said if you have to continuously, and let's face it, cop ammunition is expensive. If you're talking about HydroShocks, or if you're talking about Golden Saber, or you're talking about Spear ammo, talking about any kind of a premium load, you're talking maybe 50 to 75 cents a shot. So you're not just going to be throwing those things away every time you eject one of them. He said take that cartridge out of the chamber when you eject it and put it in its own magazine all by itself, all by its lonesome. And then when you have to reload your gun, you load it back up, take that magazine with just a single round in it and chamber it, and then put the an additional magazine in there. And you're like, well, what's the big deal there? Well, what you'll do is you can take that cartridge of ammunition and you can eyeball it and you can compare it to the other ones that are sitting down in the magazine. Because if you just keep mixing them up, you're never going to know. And I started doing this, and I noticed that maybe a 32nd, a 64th, a 50th, whatever of an inch, a 16th of an inch is a lot. But the bullet would get depressed, and you're like, okay, and now I know that cartridge needs to go into the training box or whatever. I'll throw it in a container, and I'll get a fresh cartridge out. But by doing that, you can segregate those. And if you're continuously loading and unloading the same round, it's going to happen. You're going to damage that round. So as far as dry practice, what can I do? I keep it loaded and I keep it unloaded. Well, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to be honest with yourself and say, how many rounds, am I going to want to cycle through and put in the dud box or in the training box or whatever, before I stop doing that. Or you can get an identical pistol to the one that you use as a duty gun. You're like, what? Yeah. I know that's kind of a crazy concept, but if let's say the Glock 17 is your primary defensive gun, well, get 2 Glock 17s and use one of them for training and practice and keep the other one loaded and ready to go. And those are your options. But the fact of the matter is, and I'm glad that you brought it up, if you continuously chamber and unchamber rounds over and over and over and over and over again, eventually that round is going to get damaged, and it could cause a potential stoppage or malfunction in your gun when you need it the absolute most, and you don't want to do that. Or you could just get yourself on a quarterly or a 6-month or annual. And I would say, and I'll give you a quick lagniappe and then I'll let you go. People say, well, how often should I change out my duty ammo? Well, in the police world, what they generally do is they issue you your duty ammo, and then when you go to the range, at least when on all the departments that I was ever with, you go to the range and you start out your training that day or your qualification or whatever, and you shoot up all the duty ammo that you had on your body, and then you continue on, and then when you're all done for the day, they issue you another box of duty ammo and you load it up, and now you have brand new duty ammo. And you can either do that annually or, every 6 months or what have you. If I were you guys out there, I would think birthday ammo. Think about it like this. Say, like the changing the batteries in your smoke detector. Hey, it's my birthday. How do you want to reward yourself on your birthday? Reward yourself with a brand new box of 20 HydroShocks. Or whatever it is you're carrying in your gun, Golden Sabers or, Hornady or Black Hills or whomever. And speaking of Black Hills, I'm drinking coffee out of my Black Hills coffee mug right now. But do birthday bullets for yourself. Do birthday ammo. Every day, every year around your anniversary date, if you haven't shot up the ammo that you're carrying in your defensive gun, shoot it up, replace it with new stuff. You won't regret it. All right, Jared. Do we have time to do a Go Team moment, or do we need to move that into the next segment?
Well, let's just go ahead and move that into the next segment. We're coming up on 43 minutes.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, thank you for joining us for part 1 of Student of the Gun Radio this week. Folks, things are not right in this world, and they're not going to get better by ignoring them. They're not going to fix themselves. Things aren't going to get better because you pretend it didn't happen. And you need to pay attention. You need to hold those responsible for, hold people responsible for their actions and their behavior and their inactions. And when it comes down to it, the only person that is directly responsible for protecting you and your family is you. Jared, we want to go ahead. Let's go ahead and pimp the. You guys know about the bonus hour. The third hour, in addition to the question, the personal question, we've got one more week of free ebooks. So if you want to get yourself the Student of the Gun, A Beginner Once, A Student for Life ebook for free for nothing, all you have to do is sign up. You subscribe to the third hour, the third bonus hour, and when you do that, Jared's going to send into your inbox a copy of the Student of the Gun ebook for free. And the ebook actually costs more than the subscription does if you were to buy it separately, so it's like getting the subscription for free. Don't forget about that. Don't forget about our TV show. It's on Dish Channel 266 every night, every Monday night, not every night, every Monday night at 9 p.m. We're on Shentel HD Cable. We're on Wilderness TV or TV Gone Wild. You can watch us via the Roku app, via Apple TV, Chromecast, and all that good stuff. And, of course, you can always download the Student of the Gun mobile app for your iPhone, your Android device there, your iPad. Do it today. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. And Jared would very much like you to, if you do that, if you go ahead and download the mobile app, if you could give us a rating, that would be great. Isn't that right, Jared? Would you like them to do that?
Yeah, give us a 5-star rating.
Yeah, Jared.
And leave a review.
Yeah, there you go. Jared said,
type some words in there.
Type some words. Make words. All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming up in part 2, you are not going to want to miss part 2 because it's a special report, Bullies with Sandwiches, and we've got a brand new Go Team Moment theme song. We've got a Go Team theme song for you guys. We're going to introduce that to you this week. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, whatever day it is, whatever year it is, whatever happens to be going on in the world, you are a beginner once, but you're a student for life.